Hello, my name is Kurt Roberts and I'm the principal at Effingham High School. I would like to welcome all students and their families to a new school year at EHS. Obviously, this is a very unusual school year, and I'm sure that students and families have a lot of questions. In an attempt to answer some of those questions, I am posting a couple of videos to provide information about the upcoming school year. This video is specifically for students that are choosing in-person learning. There is another video posted for students who are choosing remote learning. To begin with, I would like to talk a little bit about what a student needs to do to be considered registered for the coming school year. An in-person learner needs to do three things to be considered enrolled for the upcoming school year. Number one, they need to make sure that they're registered online with the district the same as we've done for the past 2 years. You can do that by going to Effingham Unit 40's webpage and clicking on the registration and going through that process. The second thing that you need to do is you have to make sure that you indicate whether you are an in-person or remote learner. If you haven't done this, please make sure that you contact the high school office and let one of the secretaries know the name of the student and that they will be an in-person learner. You need to do this even if you are an in-person learner. We have to be able to identify who's going to be in the building and who's not going to be in the building. So if you haven't done that yet, please call the high school and make sure you let them know. The other thing that has to happen is if you're an in-person learner is that each student needs to have a parent or a guardian sign a self-certification and verification form. This form was mailed to all current high school students 9 through 12, in other words, freshman through senior. That was mailed in the mail with the form and with a self-addressed stamped envelope for you to return mail that to Effingham High School. If you didn't receive that, you can find a copy of this form on the district's back to school plan, which is on the homepage of the district's website. It is on page 5 of the back to school plan. It's a PDF. You can sign that and you can mail it back, or if you call the high school, they'll let you know how you can either email it or send it by fax. So please, we have to have that on file before a student will be allowed in the building. So again, I'm going to emphasize those three things that you need to do to make sure that you register for this coming school year. One is you need to be registered with Effingham Unit 40, the same as you always have online. Second is you need to make sure that the high school is aware whether your student is going to be a remote learner or an in-person learner. If you haven't done that so far, please call the high school. Again, the number is 540-1100 and let one of the secretaries know. The third thing is we need the self-evaluation certification form that you can either mail back from the mailing that I sent out, or you can go to the district's webpage to the back to school plan, page 5, and there is a PDF file that you can click on the link and it will give you that form. If you are a new student, all right, that is starting new in the district, I would recommend that you call our student services at 540-1152 and start the process of a records request from your previous school. And then also you can start the registration process online, and that will get us started into getting you in here and getting you a schedule and getting you so that you're ready to start day one, right? Let me move into telling you a little bit about some of the changes that are going to take place during the school day here at Effingham High School. First of all, let's talk about the schedule. The schedule is a shortened schedule. We will actually start our first class at 7:45. This is different from in the past. Our first class used to start at 7:55. So we will start our first class at 7:55. We will have 7 hours of academic classes in a row. The last academic class will end at 12:50. Lunch will be served after 7th hour, so after 12:50. If a student chooses not to eat lunch at Effingham High School, they may leave after 7th hour, so at 12:50, if they can provide their own transportation. That means they could be picked up by a parent, they can drive themselves, or they can walk. So if a student is providing their own transportation, they wish not to eat at Effingham High School, their school day will end at 12:50 after 7th hour. Let's talk a little bit about the start of the day, and then I'll also kind of elaborate on a few more of these things at the end of the day as well. So if a student is riding a bus, they will be able to enter the building when they are dropped off by the bus driver. We are asking students being dropped off by parents not to come any earlier than 7:15. The parent pickup will be in the same location, but please don't, we're trying to stagger the time that students come in. So don't drop a student off before 7:15. If a student is driving to school on their own, we're asking those students not to be here before 7:30. If they are here before 7:30, they need to wait in their car. They need to wait in their car. They're not, at no time should they be going from one student's car to another student's car and waiting in those cars together, okay? So again, just reiterate, a bus rider, they can enter the building as soon as they're dropped off. If you're doing a parent drop-off, please don't drop off your students before 7:15. If you're driving to school on your own, come to the school at 7:30, all right? Students eating breakfast, okay, should enter the cafeteria doors. So in other words, you would enter through the cafeteria doors. They will need to remain in the cafeteria when they get their breakfast. In the past, we've allowed students to pass from the gymnasium to the cafeteria and the cafeteria back to the gymnasium. We won't be able to do that. So if you are going to eat breakfast at Effingham High School, you need to come in the cafeteria doors, get your breakfast. You can sit there, but you have to stay in the cafeteria. If you are not eating breakfast, you will enter through the gym doors. Once you're in the gym doors, you'll be directed where to sit. And this will be in the small gym for freshmen and sophomores. It will be in the visiting bleachers in the main gym for juniors and seniors. Students will have to remain seated in the areas designated for them to sit. At 7:40, the first bell will ring and students will proceed directly to the first hour class. At 7:45, our first hour will begin. I want to talk a little bit about the lunch expectations before we talk about the end of the day. If students are staying for lunch, again, lunch will start at 12:50 after all of the academic classes are done. If a student is staying for lunch, that means they did not get picked up by a parent, they didn't drive, and they didn't walk home, okay? The lunches will be divided between the small gym and the cafeteria. So students will be assigned one of those areas for the attempt of reducing the number of students in any one given area. Students will be instructed at all times, whether it's waiting in the morning in these tables or at the lunch period, they will be instructed to sit on only one side of the table, all right? So they can only sit on one side of the table and face the same direction. Students will be able to remove masks while they eat. So while they're at lunch and while they're eating, obviously they're going to have to remove their mask. However, when they're waiting in line and picking up their lunches, their mask must remain on. It is very important that students do not share food or utensils. Students should use hand sanitizers and or wash hands before and after they eat. There are hand sanitizer stations are located in each of our classrooms, and it is recommended that students use these before they go to lunch. So as they leave their 7th hour class, they can reach out as they walk out the building, they can get hand sanitizer, use that really on the way to lunch, and then they would be able to use that beforehand. Also, they would be able to stop in the restroom and be able to wash their hands if that's the case. Let's talk about the end of the day. If a student chooses not to eat at school and they can provide their own transportation, again, that means that we will have a parent pickup at 12:45, 12:50-ish, right in that time period. They drive themselves or they walk. They may leave after 7th hour. If a student chooses to stay for lunch, they will be dismissed at 1:30. They will not be allowed to leave early from lunch. So in other words, if a student comes, they choose to eat lunch and they say, I'm done with my lunch at 1:15, school day stops at 1:30. We're not able to have students coming in and out at any given time. It has to be at that end. So 1:30, you will be here till 1:30. If a student is eating lunch at school and they have their own transportation, they may leave at 1:30. So in other words, it's okay that if you stay and you drive yourself, if you want to stay for lunch, that's fine. If you want to get parent pickup at 1:30 after lunch, that's fine as well. If you want to stay and eat and then walk home after 1:30, that's fine as well. So all of those options will be available to anybody who wants to stay and eat. If a student is riding the bus pickup will begin at approximately 1:30, and students will be picked up at the high school based on the bus schedule as they're running the routes. This is through the whole district. So it is important that you keep in mind, and those pickups will happen. All students will wait in the cafeteria, but it's important that you realize that because of the routes that are running and because of the different times in the school, some of those bus pickups at Effingham High School may be after 2 o'clock before that student gets picked up. They will be allowed to stay at Effingham High School until their bus picks them up. However, they need to make sure that they are waiting in the cafeteria at the table, sitting on one side with masks on, okay? Parent pickup and drop off will continue to be in the same place as normal. This means that parents will be coming in into the parking lot from Route 40, and you just have to follow the arrows through the loop. Please do not cut through the line. I know that some people choose to not follow the loop all the way around, and they go backwards down one of the parking aisles. This just causes upset among all of the people that are waiting in the line. So please go through the loop and parent pick up correctly. Please do not drop off or pick up students at the cafeteria entrance. This is where our buses are operating from, and it gets in difficulty with the buses and basically causes confusion in that area. Oftentimes, actually, what happens is parents, because they're not paying attention, they are actually passing school buses with a stop arm out, which is against the law. So we're trying to keep those two things separate. Please do your parent pickup or drop off from the Route 40 entrance. The cafeteria entrance is for bus drop off and bus pickup. As I said before, students will wait seated in the cafeteria until their bus pickup time. You must wear a mask and you must practice social distancing as you're directed. Unless a student is waiting for a bus pickup or a parent pickup, they must leave the high school immediately after they're dismissed or after lunch when they're let go. So in other words, you're not going to be able to congregate in the parking lot with your friends. And we apologize for that. It's just the conditions that we have to be in. You're not going to be able to wait with somebody that is waiting on a bus, but you're actually driving. When it's time for you to leave, you have to leave the parking lot. You have to leave the campus. Students will be that are involved in sports. They will be able to come back to the campus at their practice time. They will be able to come back and park in the parking lot at the time of their practice. I want to talk a little bit about cleaning in the building. So the district has implemented policies and protocols and procedures for extra cleaning in the building. Each teacher will be given a certain set of cleaning utensils and cleaning items for their building, but also if students want to carry in their backpacks their own wipes, their own hand sanitizers for their own personal use, that is perfectly okay. So I would recommend it's something that it's easy to carry, and again, putting in that backpack, that is fine. But if they want to use those for their own personal use, that is perfectly fine. We want to talk a little bit about expectations for the restrooms. Students will need to wait for available stalls or urinals, and they need to wait in the hallway. They shouldn't wait actually in the bathroom. So in other words, students are not going to be able to congregate or loiter in the bathroom as a group. They just need to be able to wait in the hall for the availability. Expectations for the water fountains. The water fountains, as far as a drinking fountain, all right, will not be available. However, a number of our water fountains in the building are being converted to bottle fillers. So a student will be able to use a water bottle throughout the day. We will have bottle fillers that they will be able to fill those and refill those throughout the day. We just ask a couple of things about the bottles. One is that they have a sealable top. So in other words, it's something that can be sealed, and if it gets knocked over or something along those lines, it's not spilling everywhere. So what we don't want is we don't want a McDonald's cup that is very easy for it to spill, or something that does not have a top that is easily and securely sealable. The other thing is that we ask that it's something that can be put away into a backpack. In other words, we don't want, like a half-a-gallon jug being drug around the building. So those are the requirements that we ask. The students just comply with that because it makes it easier for all of us, and it makes it so that those water bottles are out of the way when they need to be out of the way. Some expectations about hallways and movement in the hallway. When students move between classes, they must stay on the right side of the hall. You may stop to use the restroom or fill your water bottle. That's not a problem. However, students are not going to be able to stand in groups or congregate. They need to be able to move from one classroom directly to another classroom. The other thing to note is, in order to accommodate our schedule and a shortened schedule, we have actually taken 1 minute away from the passing period. So the passing periods have moved from 5 minutes between classes to 4 minutes between classes. So I just want to emphasize with students there won't be as much time between classes, and really you need to travel, take care of going to the restroom, take care of filling a water bottle if you need to, go directly to the classroom and then stay in that classroom. Students are expected to wear their mask, and it is required that you wear your mask as you're moving from classroom to classroom and in the classroom as well. Students will be able to remove their mask when they're in PE as they're practicing social distancing. So this is at the direction of those PE teachers. We understand this will be a difficult thing to have that mask on. So if students are outside, and when I say in PE, I mean in PE and outside. And I'm going to talk a little bit about PE expectations in a minute. But you have to be practicing those social distancing aspects whenever that happens. Let's talk about those PE expectations. Students will not be given lockers for PE. Students will not be dressing for PE. So as of now, students will not be getting, there won't be a need for students to get uniforms. There won't be a need for them to bring them to school. We won't be utilizing them as of now. PE teachers will be adjusting the activities to meet social distancing requirements and account for the fact that students will not be dressing. PE teachers will try to be outside as much as possible. I've spoken with them, and we understand that this is an opportunity, and about the only opportunity students are going to have a break from wearing a mask. And so we want to utilize that as much as possible, but we ask students that are to work with us on this and understanding this is the only time when they're outside is really the only time that we can give them the break from wearing the mask. So when they're outside, they need to follow the directive of those PE teachers so that they're maintaining those social distances. And being able to give them that break. So we're going to do that as much as we possibly can. Students should consider how they're dressing for school as it relates to PE. And I want to tell you, this is especially true for footwear. So please wear shoes that will work for PE activities, or you can bring a pair in your backpack and you can change those shoes for PE. But understand that the PE teachers are trying to adjust those activities to understanding that we're not actually dressing in shorts and t-shirts, but we do need to keep in mind that we're going to try to wear some type of a footwear that works. Let's talk a little bit about expectations for absences and attendances. The Illinois State Board of Education has mandated that all attendance incentive programs be suspended for this school year. What that means is any program that's in place to encourage, say, perfect attendance or regular attendance, we have to remove those with the idea that we want students to have that freedom to be able to say, all right, if I'm not feeling well or I'm fearful of having some type of COVID-19 symptom, I don't have that incentive to actually come. So for us, what that means is all students will take final exams in the spring semester because we have to suspend that attendance program. Also, we have offered free parking in the following year for kids who have perfect attendance. We will not be able to offer that this year. So we will not be able to offer free parking in the next year, all right, for students who have perfect attendance. Regular attendance policies are in place. So if a student isn't coming to school, you still need to call the high school and let us know that your child will not be in attendance on that day. Please, when you leave, if you leave a message, just give a detailed reason for the absence when you call and let us know why they're not attending. If a student is absent from school, they need, and this is for any makeup work, all students will be enrolled, even in-person students will be enrolled in Google Classrooms. Teachers are using those Google Classrooms and putting all their assignments in there. If a student is absent from school, they need to check in their Google Classrooms for every class to see what work they need to complete and what work they need to make up. I would also encourage them to talk with their teachers about that when they return. So again, I'm going to emphasize that because that's a big change. In the past, what we've done is we've had teachers call and they've requested homework for students that are absent. I'm going to I'm going to give you that guideline that right now the expectation is if you're absent from school that you're checking into your Google Classroom and checking for the assignments that you're missing, and you're going to be able to take care of those assignments pretty much on your own, but you also need to check with your teacher when you come back from your absence. I would like to kind of continue and just give you some general information about the school day and maybe some general advice. First of all, back in the spring, and it seems a long time ago now, the school board actually voted on a slight change to our dress code policy. So I just wanted, without getting into a lot of details as to why or the background and to the reasons, I just want to give you kind of some highlights to that dress code policy. Number one is that the dress code policy stayed in effect that students are to be clothed from shoulder to mid-thigh. The biggest change, and the one that's probably going to affect the most people, is the school board basically voted on a change that basically says no exposed skin, all right, may be seen above mid-thigh. Now, I'm just going to be very specific with you in this. What this is addressing specifically are the jeans that have a lot of holes in them. Basically, it says that, and makes it very easy, and really this was the reason for the change, and very easy to understand. If you have jeans on that have exposed skin, okay, from mid-thigh up, you will be asked to change. And then that's as simple as I can kind of make it, and it's kind of hard to explain in a video, and I know that people might have questions, but that's as simple as it is. And I want to make sure that people are aware of that now, all right, before school starts. A couple of other general things. Make sure you're keeping your money on your lunch account. You can do that in one of two ways. You can do that in My School Box, which is online, or we will have a drop box. We will also have a drop box for parents that are outside of the entrance to the building. It will be kind of in the first, if you've been in the school before, you know we've got like two waiting areas. It will be in that first waiting area. Please make sure if you're dropping off lunch money for your student that you have it in an envelope. We won't be providing an envelope. You have it in an envelope with the student's name on it. If you are sending it with a check, please make sure that the student's name is on the check somewhere so we make sure that we get it credited to the right account. We will not be having visitors into the building. So this is pretty much a directive from the State Board of Education. We are suspending all visitors to the building at this time. And unfortunately, that includes our mentoring program. Now, our mentoring program is going to try to stay intact. And I know we kind of did this online last year for those of you who are in that mentoring program. And so our mentoring facilitator, Ms. Herzing, will be reaching out to students and getting them connected in that way, but we will not be having mentors in the building because all visitors will be suspended except for those that are absolutely necessary in the building. That also means we will not be taking deliveries for students. So what that means is if a student forgets something at home, it's just going to have to wait until they get it the next day. We will not be taking people dropping stuff off for students, anything along those lines. We're not taking those deliveries. That includes if you're having something sent, sometimes we have people send flowers to the building or whatever. We're not doing any type of deliveries or anything like that to the school. So I want to emphasize that again. Do not bring things and drop them off for your students at the school. We're not doing that at this point. Really, we're trying to reduce the number of people in the building. We're trying to reduce the number of things that are coming in and out of the building. So just be aware of that. And students, you need to be aware of that also. You need to take the responsibility of remembering what you need to bring to school. If you are picking your student up early from school, a dentist appointment, a doctor's appointment, when you get to the school or just prior to you coming to the school, if you call the school, we will send the student out to you. So you do not need to come into the building. In fact, we don't want you to come into the building. We will send that student out to you. You just let us know you're in the building or in the parking lot, and we will make sure that student is on their way out to you. Currently, and this is for students, we allow students to come to the library before and after school. We're suspending that. So we're not utilizing the library at this point before or after school or during study hall. Students will be able to check out books online. They have access to basically the collection of books that we have or the collection of books that we have available to us. It really extends beyond what's on our shelf. They will be able to place essentially an order for that book, and then we will have those books delivered to them in their classes. So just keep in mind, we will not be opening the library before or after school at this point. Just as a reminder, our cell phone policy remains in place at the high school. And just to remind you what that means is students may use their phone with permission of their teacher for school-related activities under the direct supervision of a teacher. So that means that if they're going to use it, it has to do something to do with their classes. It has to do with something to do with an assignment. It has to be, they have to ask to do that or be directed to do that by that staff member. And that staff member, a staff member has to be in their presence when they're using it. So that means they can't just choose to use that at lunch, in the hallways, along those lines. That essentially means that it's going to be in the classroom under the supervision of one of those teachers. I would like to kind of give you a few upcoming dates as well. So we will be having parking permit and schedule changes as we usually do at the beginning of the year. Those will take place August 17th and 18th on this schedule. Seniors on August 17th from 8 to 10 a.m. They will be able to come in and get their parking permit, and if they need a schedule change, they will be able to come in and do schedule changes. Juniors on August 17th from 10 to 12, and sophomores on August 17th from 1 to 3. Freshmen schedule changes. Freshmen will be able to come in on August 18th from 8 to 10. So this is also, I posted this out on our Facebook page. It's still out there. This schedule is out there as well. Just kind of, if you didn't catch those, and you can come back and look at those. Just as a couple of reminders to students as you're coming in for parking and as you're coming in for schedule changes. All students will need to wear masks while they're in the building, right? If you bring an adult, a parent, with you when you're doing schedule changes, keep in mind we're going to limit you to one adult with that student. So in other words, there's really only 2 people that are coming into the building, a student and 1 adult. You will be meeting with your guidance counselors, okay? As far as parking permits, one of the changes that we're looking at is a parking permit is $40. Typically, we collect that money at the very beginning of the year. However, this year, we're going to take that in 2 installments. So at the beginning of the year for the first semester, we're accepting $20, okay, for the first installment. And then in the second semester, we will charge a second installment of $20. So I'm just going to emphasize that again because some parents send checks, and that's fine. Right now, to get a parking permit, you're paying for a parking permit for $20 for the first semester, and you're only paying for it a semester at a time, right? During the second semester, we will ask, and you'll just keep the same parking place. We won't change anything along those lines. We're just going to ask that you pay another $20 for the second semester or a second installment. Freshman and new student orientation. Typically, we schedule an evening where parents and students come to the building and we give them a lot of information about the upcoming year. And we allow them to get their schedule and go throughout the building. To some degree, this video is replacing that information. We are scheduling a freshman orientation where students and their parents can come to the building and they can get their schedule. They can get some information. We won't be presenting it like I'm presenting now or what we've done in the past, but they will be able to spend, and they're limited to 20 minutes, but they will be able to go throughout the building and find classes. All people coming in the building must wear masks. Students will be limited to only bringing 1 adult. Again, we have to contain the number of people that are in the building at any given time, and this is the way that we're doing that. Also, keep in mind that Mr. Pullen, our new assistant principal, and I are working on a time that we can meet with students after the beginning of the year where he and I can meet with freshmen in small group to kind of acclimate them a little bit more to the building, to try to give them a little bit more reassurance, to try to answer any type of questions that may come up. So again, we understand that we can't have this big meeting like we've had in the past, so we're trying to accommodate for that with a couple of different ways. One being this video, one being a time, and I'm going to give you the schedule in a minute. The freshmen are able to come in and when one parent and tour the building, find their classes, that type of thing. And then we will again follow up with freshmen and come into their classes at least one time in small groups to be able to answer questions and just reassure them and kind of acclimate them to high school. The schedule for freshmen coming in for freshman orientation will be the following, and again, this is posted on Facebook as well, is on August 18th for students with a last name that begin with A through B, that will be at 5 p.m. And again, 20 minutes is the max that we're going to be able to allow that so we can get everybody in. Students with the last name C through E will be 5:30 p.m. on August 18th. Students with the last name F through H will be 6 p.m. on August 18th. Students with the last name I through L on August 18th at 6:30 p.m. The following night on August 19th will be students M through 9 at 5 p.m. Students O through R at 5:30 p.m. Students S through T at 6 p.m. and students U through Z at 6:30 p.m. Again, this is posted online as well. If you didn't catch all of those, you can call the high school and be able to get those updated as well. I would like to just finish with this. We've tried our very best to be able to answer all the questions that people have and the information that I've just put out. We understand that there's going to be some specific questions that we weren't able to answer. Feel free to call the high school office, 540-1100. And either myself, Mr. Pullen, or one of the secretaries should be able to answer those questions for you. We also understand that we're planning for a pretty unstable circumstance. We understand that changes might be made at the last minute, and we're trying to make sure that we're minimize those as much as we possibly can. We're also understanding that things are drastically changed for students as they are than what they've ever been used to in the past. We're trying to maintain as much of that normalcy as we possibly can based on the parameters that we've been given by the Illinois Department of Public Health, by the Illinois State Board of Education. These are the best attempts that we've made at this point. Again, things may change as we move through this, but I just want to reiterate the idea that we are trying to do our very best. We will give grace to students, and we ask for that grace in return. We know that we're in a difficult situation, and we're all in this together. We're going to do the best that we can for the very best for all students, and providing them with the education that is out there. If you have further questions, I encourage you to please call Effingham High School at 540-1100 and get your questions answered. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon.